Welcome back to Living in My Mind, another episode with my partner, Mitchell Butler here. We're going to talk about something really interesting people don't think about, but I just want to start this out by saying, we just did a show and we talked about how the Lakers did primetime and how wonderful it was. And the Clippers are doing a show based upon their owner being a worthless piece of human shit. How many people are going to draw fans to that and watch, hey, we want to go see the Clippers? Now, back to reality. Mitchell, we're going to talk today about AI and how that affects athletes and people that don't really understand it, and how much it really can focus on hurting our society as well as helping our society. Because the one thing I've realized about AI, somebody has to put the answers in there.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, AI is an extremely powerful tool, and sometimes it's misappropriated, used in a very malicious manner. You can take an individual's voice and, put it over images and make it seem as if, that person was in the room doing X, Y, or Z with X, Y, Z person. You can really slander and go after a person's character. And again, Dennis, for us, what we're talking about here is, how does this all affect our current athletes today mentally? They have to deal with social media. They have to deal with the fans. They have to deal with, their own personal issues and personal problems. How do they get through all of these different things when you have all of these different technologies coming at you, trying to tear away at your brand or trying to question your brand or trying to put a seed of doubt into your mind when you're trying to go out and compete at the highest level night in and night out?
Yeah.
It's scary.
Well, the thing, AI, it's interesting. You have so many people who love it. Corporations love it because it can help them save money.
Right.
People like it because you can get an answer. Mm-hmm. Like on my app, Mark, producer of the show, put one on mine. So I ask it all these questions, can't help you. Like, well, what the hell am I asking you the question for? And then you ask it, like, you can talk about sex, it will not answer. You can talk about criminal activity, it will not answer. You can ask how to do certain things, it will not answer. And so, I guess there's a place for it. And people think, well, it's going to have to replace a lot of people in work. Well, you think about it. If it replaces people in work, if it replaces people in anything, you're never going to get 100% of what you need because it's going to make mistakes.
Right.
And like you said about athletes, what are some of the situations you've heard or come across? I know years ago in New York, I lived in New York, there was a football player, met two girls, went upstairs, they drugged him. Next thing you know, the FBI was involved because it showed a man having sex with him. Even though it was simulated, they tried to sue him. This athlete was smart enough to say, He went to so I spoke at a school years ago, and FBI was speaking, explaining this to athletes. Here's what you're going to have. Here's what the reality is of it. So what things could you say AI has affected athletes that you've seen or that you believe is going to happen in the future?
I think it's affected them in a lot of ways. I think when you see players talking on the court now, they grab their shirts and they pull them up over their mouth and they talk to each other because in an AI situation, you can have someone do a complete voiceover of that conversation and have them saying things that are just outlandish, and it would appear as if they're actually having that type of conversation.
Have you seen those on TikTok? They do have those.
Oh, absolutely.
They had Caitlin Clark doing it once. They had a couple other athletes, and it was their voice,
right?
But there's no living way in hell they were saying what they're saying because one of them was, yes, we played against them. They're worthless. They're pieces of shit. They weren't as good as I'm thinking. I didn't see that in the championship game.
No.
So, but the sad thing is, people look at that and don't realize it, and they believe it.
Yeah, I think judicially they'll have to come up with something, in the libel slander category that protects celebrities or any individual for that matter, from, having to deal with, some type of technology that would, change your perspective or change what you're saying or change, what your intent and your design was to do in any type of transaction, conversation, interaction that you have with someone. AI is a very, very powerful tool. I sit on a school board, we're always worried about, whether or not, papers are being written by kids or if the technology is actually writing the paper. And, AI now has a way to fact check that so that, there's a way of finding out those types of things. It would be cool if people had access to things that would be able to detect if this is an AI generated, piece of propaganda.
Well, plagiarism.
Yes.
I mean, look at when it came to the thing, Israel versus the Palestine situation. I believe the lady from Yale, or I can't remember, Harvard, she had to step down because they said they went back and looked that she plagiarized things.
Right.
I mean, if you don't give someone credit, that's plagiarism.
Right.
But you also look at, like, you have revenge porn. It's almost the same thing. You have these two ladies of housewives. One's opened up a salon and showed a picture of the other lady having oral sex. You haven't seen the damn picture.
Right.
But the thing is, it's perception versus perspective. My perception is whatever I make it. My perspective is taking what you have to say and listening. But we live in a society where people love to jump on it.
Court of public opinion.
Yeah, and a lot of times you're defeated before you even get a chance to tell the truth. And like you said about athletes and about schools, you're involved with a really wonderful school, really amazing people. So how do the schools, because this is about education for kids too. If you're going to go to school, I always think it's interesting. People talk about affirmative action.
Yes.
There are many people who don't get an opportunity because of the color of their skin or their sex. That's reality. No one's going to really give them a job unless they can do the fucking job. You need a chance to get in the door.
Right.
And so when you have people who say, well, affirmative action, this and that, to me, it's the same thing like with AI to a degree, because people are saying, well, these people are cheating getting in the door. No, they're not. If you haven't been able to get in the door, someone's got to give it to you. So with AI, the same thing is you got to take a look and say, are these actually doing the job? Do they deserve the grades? Do they deserve it? How does a school address that?
Again, I mean, they have a technology that fact checks, papers, so they're able to run them through a scanner, and it can determine whether or not Chat GPT.
So it knows of the AI.
Yes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's not thinking the kids.
Yeah, there are certain. I don't know exactly how it works, but there are certain key phrases and things of that nature that if they aren't properly referenced, that it would ring a bell and would cause a further investigation to try to determine whether or not that was authentic work.
Mark, you know a lot about AI. Coming from your perspective, the work you do, how do you feel that it has a negative effect or a positive effect in whatever anybody's doing?
Well, with anything, it's so new, so we're learning how to use it. So people now, as you're seeing different interviews and with like Caitlin Clark not saying that she deserves to make more money, like eventually they'll do the same thing that they're doing. Like on Instagram, it'll say how they would fact check things about politics, and it'll start saying this is questionable, this might be AI. That way, like as you say, something comes up in your feed and you don't know that it's AI, you might just believe it, and it's too late to even realize it, and now it's already gone viral and affected a lot of people. So in the future, I think what they'll do is they'll be able to dictate what is AI and what isn't, and then be able to at least raise a red flag as you're viewing it. So that way it just knows based on the algorithm and based on the technology. And right now, since ChatGPT is so huge, and then now Google has their AI, everybody's coming up with their new AI, but there's the issues with it. If somebody sends me something that is written by ChatGPT, I don't even need a fact check. I could tell you this is ChatGPT. So for a computer to be able to say that, it's probably very simple right now. But as it gets more advanced, I think both sides are going to get very advanced to the point where we won't know.
It's interesting you put it that way too, because you think about it. It's perception. If you see something on social media, you're going to think it. It's kind of like in relationships.
Right.
People say, Bob, I saw your girl with another guy. Perception is he doesn't know the truth, or vice versa. What you're going to go act? You're going to accuse. You're going to create a problem. And I think that's the most important thing, because education is hard enough in this school in this country. But the fact is, like you said, the schools are dealing with it. Now, when it comes to the sports, I think it's interesting that people don't really realize all these things deal with sports. Every degree you get in college can be used in sports. I think that's the only, field that every degree you get can work in sports. So your education is important. So when you deal with these, say if you catch a kid doing something like this, how's that handled at school? How do you as a board go to this teacher? Do they bring the parent in? Do they question the kid, or just say, look, here it is, you cheated?
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, cheating is a very, very serious offense.
Yeah.
It's taken very seriously. In academia, people like to see authentic works that are original and, not plagiarized. So anytime that there is something involving, cheating or plagiarism or things of that nature, it's very serious. So you bring the student in and you have a conversation with the student, and, If it's been determined that the student has plagiarized the piece of work, there could be a range of different types of.
What grades are at the school that you deal with?
It's a K through 12 school.
Oh, hell, there's a lot of kids.
Yeah. So, but again, I think the kids too now are, they're so technologically savvy that they do understand that, it's not a tool to use because, as well as they know how to use it on the one side, they know on the other side that they can be caught just as easily.
Hey, I got in trouble, and I talk about it. Let me tell you, when they came to me today and said, look, for 2 years, we have text messages, emails, and phone calls, I'm like, shit, and they plopped that fucking stack down, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. Because you don't think of that. Yes. We don't think of ahead. We never think of, it's years ago when I had a buddy, we lived in San Francisco, we wanted credit cards. Well, back then, no technology. Mm-hmm. You go to the store, you apply, they call a number, you give them to give you. I had more jobs, we had like $40,000 in credit cards. Right. Now, the thing is, we did what we wanted. We didn't do what we needed. We needed a job. Today, my credit still suffers from that. And it's always about immediate gratification that gets a lot of people in trouble. And they always think no one's going to look.
And I would like, Dennis, for us as a society to move away from that. As a kid growing up in the 70s and the 80s, things took time and people took their time to do things. We were a service-oriented society. So if you needed things fixed in your house, someone came to your house and they took the time to really work on whatever it is that they were working on and finishing it. Today, it's a microwave society, and everything needs to be done in a split second. People don't have the time, the patience to wait. So, they want it done as quickly as possible and with the least amount of effort as possible so that they can do many other things. And,
you hit it on the head, least amount of effort. It's immediate gratification. I mean, we've got DoorDash. We've got a friend of mine, I spent time with her once, and she wanted a milkshake. Literally, I kid you not, it was across the street from here. I'm like, I'll go get it. She goes, no, we'll DoorDash. They brought her a thing of milk, and she was pissed. I'm like, you don't get to complain. If you're going to use something because you're lazy, if you're going to use something because it's convenient, you can't complain. And, when you're talking about that, it's kind of like addicts.
Right.
It's addicts will use whatever they need to get through the moment, not thinking. Or sadly, people with suicide. Many times you want to just get rid of the pain you're dealing at the moment.
Right.
Not realizing I'd rather continue. Hey, I've got suicidal thoughts all the time in my freaking head. But still, the pain is more enjoyable than not feeling it again. Yeah. And, there's consequences, but you hit on, it used to be you call people, you did this. Now everybody looks it up. You can have a car delivered to you now. Hookers, no, believe me. You got to work for that part.
I've tried DoorDash and Uber, and then when I see the delivery charge, the service charge, and then I got a tip as well, and it ends up being more than the meal itself, I'm like, wait a minute,
I didn't realize all those things were added. I did it one time in my life, my favorite sushi place over in Studio City. I was living in Santa Monica. They brought it to me. Wasn't even my order. So I drive all the way back, and the owner I've known for years, I said, this is wrong. He's like, Dennis, we didn't order it. I'm like, bullshit. I called you to let you know they were coming. He's like, and I didn't realize they don't get the money. They get paid, but the company gets the money. So I called the DoorDash, and they're like, it'll take a while to reverse it. I'm like, I never ordered again. No, and I don't trust that when you order something, you're going to get what you want. No. Yeah.
We just live in a different society now, one in which, from a mental standpoint, we don't use as much of our mental capacity as we should be using.
Oh, so true.
A lot of the work is done for us. Now, what's really strange about it is that you can hand, a senior person, probably someone in their 60s, 70s, a computer, and they'll just freeze. And you can hand that same computer to a 3-year-old, and they'll be like, they'll have Word and Excel and PowerPoint up. And so in that capacity, they're able to think better, quicker, and easier. But, when you look at people who are a little bit older that come from, the Gen X or the baby boomers population, it is more about, listen, how can we move in a way that is, quality time versus, the quantity, the quickness of how we can complete something. So
you hit it on the head. In my industry, there's a lot of rehabs. It's about quantity.
Yeah.
I talk to one all the time. They're like, well, we have too many clients. I'm like, but somebody's paying you money to help them. That person's trusting you, and you're sitting here telling me that you can't do what you need to do, and you always have excuses, but you're not changing the fact that you're taking the money.
Right.
And I think, one of my biggest downfalls in life is I used to get jobs and, have every reason I'd take the money. I didn't give a damn until later in life I realized, not the way to do it. But the reality is, until we keep getting away with things, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You keep doing it. Or if you get in trouble, you can flip on somebody else to get them in trouble. When I was in high school, I'll never forget, I took a test, and there's a guy named Bill Ryan. Bill Ryan's father was a lawyer. So at the end of the day, Mr. Leger says, and Mr. Leger, good man, he goes, Bill Ryan? Another paper, he goes, Bill Ryan? He's like, does anybody not have a paper? He looks at me and he goes, you copied the fucking name too? I'll never forget that. I was like, and I thought, shit, I could have got away with it. But it was great. He's like, guys, I want to tell you something. If you're going to cheat, make sure you get some of the answers wrong and don't sign your, and then I got home, my mother gave me a slashing that, she was so upset. But the reality is we always want gratification rather than doing the work. In many instances, they're, like you said, generational too. Like you have two daughters, both great careers. Both have worked their behinds off to get there, correct? Mm-hmm. And so there's no shortcuts for what they want to do.
Right.
In the medical field, there are none.
Yeah. And again, it's society and it's the generation you're born in. The millennials are, they're right on the cusp of that whole, immediate gratification feeling. But, your Gen Z, your Gen A, like they're all about the quickness. Like, I want to be doing multiple things and I want to be doing it as quickly as I possibly can do it to get it done. And in a lot of those instances, the connection, the feelings, the emotions, those types of things are dismissed and pushed to the side. And that's where, you start to really lose a bit of your human or humanity.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't relate to someone.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
It's like you think about, like you just said. I interviewed a girl the other day. She wanted to come into detox and treatment. Family's paying money. She goes, I'm only coming for 5 days. My family's going on a vacation. Called the mother, and I said, well, Mother's like, she's not going anywhere with us. The girl stayed 5 days, and she left. She went out. She got in a car. She got in a car wreck. But she knew she had 5 days. And the mother was like, okay, they had set boundaries. It's all about immediate gratification. Or it's like this. If you have a problem, take the time. Like cognitively, it takes time to get to where you want to go. You can't just say, I got it. It's a daily practice. It's like athletes, like you mentioned in the show earlier. Gilbert Arenas. It's the same repetition, because repetition, no matter if it's mental, physical, spiritual, whatever it is, the same thought. Once you teach yourself something, it's kind of hard to unlearn it.
Yeah. These kids grow up so quickly these days. And it's not about taking your time. I come across and deal with families that are very afraid to have certain conversations with their kids. And I'm like, wait a minute, they're your children. You should be able to have any conversation with them that you like. But, because the kids grow up so quickly and the technology feeds them information so fast that, they don't go through the things that we went through growing up. There were so many people that had an influence on us growing up.
Oh, hell yes.
It was a community that helped raise us, versus now it's technology, and it's a different type of community that raises these kids. These kids are exposed to things that are, quite frankly, it's scary when you think about it for, someone who's, 5 to 12 years old, the type of content and information that they're exposed to. We just weren't exposed to that. And it's a different mentality. It's a different mindset. And it leads to a different type of engagement in the world with these types of people.
Well, you hit it on the head. Did you ever go to a restaurant and you see a table? I went to a restaurant the other day. This lady had 3 little girls. I mean, they were great. Each one of them had a tablet, whatever the hell it is, 3 different cartoons on. They were all sitting on one side. She was sitting on the other, talking on the phone. So it's kind of like, it was just an interesting thing. And the waitress and I were looking at her. Now, they're going to be distracted by that. It's going to say there's no communication at the table, and I shit you not, because I love the girls are eating, watching it, and it's like food's falling, and I'm thinking, my God, you're probably 5 to 9 years old, and the mother just wasn't really paying attention. So they're letting technology babysit, letting technology rather than communicate, and you see that at restaurants all the time where people don't sit down and communicate. I eat by myself, so there's not that much anybody can communicate. But you just see that, and it's like sad because I don't know, when we were younger, sitting at the dinner table, that's where a lot of conversation.
That's all the conversation.
And
how was your day?
Yeah,
How'd it
and
go?
now you see it everywhere. And then parents, it's because I don't want the baby crying. I don't want the child being upset. You know, okay, talk to them. But when you start doing that, what happens is when you get older as a child, that adds into an abandonment issue. You know, why couldn't my parents teach me this?
Yeah.
Why did it's like you go to bookstores. I always love where they talk about child pornography. You go to a bookstore, Barnes & Noble, there's more books about stories of young kids having sex and body parts you can see, and nobody's regulating it.
No,
and the kids go and they know more about shit than adults nowadays.
Yeah, the movies that you see now, the franchises, you know, they're built around, you know, maybe a vampire and werewolves, but the underlying theme
It's sex.
is sex, love.
It's sexy.
This, that, or the other, you know.
Well, the new one's coming out as mermaids. First of all, I don't know anything
sure.
sexy about a mermaid because that's not a human to me.
But Dennis, what I find too to be, you know, pretty fascinating is that we don't take time to just absorb what's going on. So our faces are planted into a phone. You know, it's amazing if you do a social experiment, how many people are really disconnected from the world, but connected to technology.
And technology rules. A good
Yes.
example is funny. There's a young lady I spend time with. She goes through a lot. She had endometriosis, all this stuff. So she has on her phone a thing that helps track her period. And I said, well, how's that work? She goes, if my phone broke, I'd be fucked. I'm like, but how? And because she's gotten so used to it telling her, and she has to input. And I'm like, that's biological. So simple things like that. You know, I work with people who are very computer savvy. I'm okay with it, and I'm learning, and I'm still learning. I'm very honest about what I can't do. And these people are whizzes, but then I always explain to them, but you can't do what I do.
Exactly.
And because I use my mouth and my brain, and I know what I'm doing. I might have trouble putting it in the computer, but the bottom line is what I do makes you the money.
Yeah, it's a big difference. It's a big difference in that. And, you know, I try to stay up on things, and I do engage with my my technology pieces. You know, I have an iPad, I have, you know, a smartphone, smart TV. I do want to be able to keep up with my kids. And,
definitely.
You know, younger kids that I work with on the agency side. I want to be able to have the right conversations with them and be in the know on their way of consumption of content.
Yep.
But, you know, I also try to tell them, hey, miss, take some time for yourself to just really view what's out there, because it's pretty
amazing. It's like, I know I don't shut off because the work I do is 24/7, 7 days a week for what I do. So the day I just said, screw it, I literally thought I was having a panic attack about 2 hours later. I'm like, shit, anybody call me? Oh my God, am I doing this? And then I realized, you know what? It's going to be here tomorrow. You know, unless God takes me, it's going to be here tomorrow. And I think a lot of people have, and a lot of it has to do with fear.
Yes.
People want to one up each other. It's kind of like what I love about sports. It's just like breaking news. Who the hell knows who broke the news? Whether it's Wojo or it's one of these other guys. But you get so much credibility for breaking news. You get so much credibility for the more people you have following you on YouTube, social media, all these sportscasters and things. It's all about how to get people to you. The more people who like you, the better off you are. I don't think that's the truth, because look at some of the people that have a lot of followers are just pieces of shit. They know how to manipulate.
But I'll say this to you too as well. It always circles back to what we do at the core of us, living in our mind, living in my mind, and unlimited cognition. You know, when you know, this technology just bogs you down like that, and mentally you're just, you know, you're disconnected. It's important to be able to ground yourself, and it's hard to when the technology is constantly pushing content and things to you that doesn't allow you to be able to come up for air and take that breath and say, okay, you know, I can now move forward. We've come from a generation in an era where, you know, you had those moments and you didn't have as much mental anguish as you do now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the technology really does drive it. It drives it hard. And at the end of the day, if you're, you know, the ones that are better able to control it, control their consumption, be able to decipher between their consumptions, between consuming it and, you know, being able to just relate to other things away from the technology, those people, I think, have a different experience in life. You know, some people, they come in, they put the phone down, and they don't touch it again.
Oh, yeah. I know those people very well.
And that's important. And these are young people. And when you start to see that, you're like, okay, you get it. But again, I drive down the street, or if I'm sitting at a park, or if I'm walking on the beach, I watch and I see how many people are just doing this. And to me, it's like, wow, and I remember when, we would try to go somewhere, and literally someone would say, okay, hey, meet me here. You got to go to this street and turn left, and you're going to see, McDonald's here. You turn right. And literally they would tell you that, and you would remember it, get in your car and drive over there. These kids nowadays, if they can't put it in navigation, you said that to them, man, they'd be, 100 miles.
Years ago, a friend I was with, Toby's mom, we went up to Northern California for Tahoe to see my family.
Right.
I knew where I was going. She decided to put the GPS. I don't need your GPS.
Right.
She was so upset that I didn't do she goes, how do you, I said, I've been here a million times. Right. I know where I'm going.
Right.
And so a lot of people have to rely on it. Mm-hmm. And nowadays you can rely on it. I like sometimes the old-fashioned way. It kind of makes sense. It's like I met someone about 3 weeks ago. We went to dinner. She sat down. I said, hold on. I turned my phone off. Now, I turned my phone off. First time I've ever done that because I wanted to enjoy time. 3.5 hours later, she said to me, she goes, you never looked at your phone? I said, no. I said, you know my life. I said, I wanted to spend time with you. I didn't want the stress. Man, when she went home and I had to pick up that phone, I about had a freaking heart attack. I was like, I miss this, I miss this. But then I realized I had such a great time that you got to balance that out. And kids don't go outside and play anymore.
Yeah, but do you see what the anxiety is that you feel?
Frick
when you turn that phone back on, you're saying to yourself, what have I missed? When 25 years ago, that wasn't the case.
No, you didn't have to.
Hey, I'm calm, I'm fine, everything's good. But, because of technology and how technology presents itself to us, we can't be away from it too long because we feel like we're missing something. It's FOMO, and it's here, and it's big, and it's a big part of the psyche and how people are. And that, really truthfully, if people can just take those moments and just unplug. Matrix is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is so deep. People look at the action. I'm like, don't look at the action. Listen to the message of the Matrix. Each and every one of us are a battery on this earth that makes this earth go round and round and round and round and round.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the earth has a system that we are a part of that system, and we help the earth go round and round within the system. If we can unplug ourselves from that system, push the technology away, we see an entirely different world. And that was the message of the movie. And it is so powerful when you really think about it in those terms. If I can unplug from the system, I get to give myself an entirely different experience.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a perfect thing to end the show on.
Yeah.
It literally is.
Appreciate
this
you,
has been a fun show, educational for you. Got the number here. Text us, call us. Mitchell Butler, my partner, and Living in My Mind. We appreciate you. We're going to be back more. Have a great day, and happy Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Have a great day, and fuck that bastard in prison. No, you got to cut that out.